Hey everyone, welcome to the latest product deep dive. I'm Brian Barletta of Sounds Profitable, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest here, Pete Jimison of Frequency. Pete, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I mean, me and you have had a chance to work together for a long time, and this is your first product deep dive. And Frequency is a really cool tool. There's a lot of different components of it. So I want to pass the mic over to you and ask you first to tell us a little bit about yourself and Frequency and what we're going to go over today.
Yeah, great. Appreciate it. And really excited to do this first product deep dive. I know you and I have been talking for a couple of years now, and finally, we've able to kind of showcase what Frequency's been working on, kind of behind the scenes for a few years. So my background, I actually come from about 10 years in the audio space. Initially, I had created and run an agency in this space, doing creative production for a lot of the audio publishers. And we were basically building out audio ads and display banners and interactive experiences for the audio publishers. And with that experience, as we were actually handling the creative production and working with ad ops teams and enabling ad sales teams with ad products, we started building out our own technology, and we were dog fooding that technology. And that's what I spun out as a separate business called Frequency. We actually rolled that out in 2017, so it's been about 5 years. We launched first with dynamic creative for audio, and we then continued to build out our platform and create robust solutions for the space. And essentially what Frequency is a campaign management tool set that includes creative management capabilities. So you can produce your creative, you can deploy your creative via VAST tags across ad servers and DSPs. You can measure those campaigns, and you have tools that are available to make that process very efficient for you. And our main clientele today have been primarily the publishers that we've been working with for many years, but we've also started to work on the media side, working directly with brands and agencies. So I'm excited to dive in and show you the Frequency campaign manager, and just kind of give you a sense of some of the cool things that Frequency is offering now that I think the audio space has been desperately needing for a while now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so much of my experience in the creative side of podcasting has been focused on like Google Sheets and emails and Dropbox and all these different things that the process is, a little bit unique. There's different types of ads and who the voice is for it, whether it's host, announcer, producer, all these different things that go into it. But at the end of the day, the process is pretty straightforward, especially if we can normalize it around really solid guidelines. So I'm excited to see you walk through campaign and creative process here. So let's take a look at the UI. So what page are we on here? This is right after we've logged in. We're at the main control panel. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So what we're going to look at is we're not going to cover everything that Frequency offers today. We're only going to be really focused on some of the campaign management features and what we call our creative manager. So what you're seeing here is the dashboard that contains a number of campaigns. And what I'm going to do is actually dive into a specific campaign. In this case, we're just featuring the Ad Council, and the campaign is called Discovering the Forest. And I'm going to create an ad unit. I'm going to walk you through the process of what it's like to build an ad unit within Frequency, deploy that ad unit using a VAST tag, and then also show some of those capabilities I was hinting on earlier regarding campaign management efficiencies. So I've jumped into the Ad Council campaign for Discovering the Forest. I'm going to create an ad, and it's very simple. Actually, in this case, I'm going to just do something SP demo for you, Brian. And I'm going to create the ad, which is going to be at this point undetermined in terms of duration or the type of format. I'm going to open up the Frequency Creative Manager. So I've created essentially right now a shell, and that is basically represented by this ID number, what we would call an ad unit, or it's your ad. And that is sitting behind a VAST tag, right? So your video ad standard template that the IAB has created. What we have done is essentially built out a UI that makes it super easy to build your creative, whether it's the audio, the companion banners, the pixels that are all associated with campaign and the specific ad inside this dashboard. So I have now come to this point. It's basically the onboarding flow, and it's asking me to create my ad unit. We have two different types. Now, audio is getting to do a little bit more in video. So you actually have the ability to select the type of creative that you're working with. In this case, we're just going to be talking about audio. I'm going to have a duration. I can select many different duration sets. And it's basically going to set with a type of ad format, right? I'm going to run a 15, a 30, a 60, and I'm going to have a rate, basically the duration between 11.25 and 18.75 as what I can work within in terms of bounds of the ad, being deployed. I also have a capability of doing approval. So if I was to check this box, I can go through a process of setting up other individuals on my team, or let's say the client side, to do approval before an ad is trafficked. So I can set up a VAS tag and then have that VAS tag ready for actually trafficking the creative once an individual has approved the creative.
Well, let's take
So
a
I'm gonna,
second to stop there, right? So
Mhm.
first off, we're talking about campaign and creative, which is really important here, right? This is the housing for the execution. A campaign is the strategy, the targeting, all of that for how you want the entire buy to go off. And what's neat about this is that publisher using this can represent it for the entire buy across all of their shows or an individual show. A media buyer could use this across everything they're doing. And the reason I emphasize that is because your delivery method of choice in this isn't a file that's outputted in a bunch of tracking pixels. It's actually a vast URL. And for the people that aren't super familiar with it, VAS is, like Pete said, video ad serving template, which ingested into it the digital audio ad serving template several years back. And what it does is it allows you to call another location for all of the ad components. So instead of, if you had 100 ads, giving somebody 100 different files and 100 different tracking pixels and having each of your partners manually set that up in their UI, a VAS tag allows one central location to create that ad and operate it from basically that central point, controlling everything and being able to double check everything. That's why that process of vetting the creative and confirming that it works for you, that works for all parties involved, is really cool here, because VAST can be used to replicate programmatic, and it can be an open-ended pipeline in other scenarios. This here is a way to show you that it can be used specifically for creative, which is really how it's used in most other ad channels.
That's right. Yeah, and really what we want to see here in the audio space, the industry, the ecosystem, and the players inside have done a great job of setting up the pipes,
Yes.
right? We've done a great job of setting up the demand side, supply side, connecting those for the inventory purposes. But what we haven't done is then separated the creative and had more control and flexibility over the creative.
100%.
And like you pointed out, we have that capability in other channels, such as display with your Celtras and Flash Talkings of the world, right? You have that in video. You don't have that really yet in audio. And so that's where frequency comes in. We provide a layer essentially that sits above, which allows you to do the control and the creative, meaning that you can deploy your creative for one campaign across many different places and have the ability to continue to swap, change that creative, optimize that creative, look at your reporting in one central place. So it's a fantastic tool for the media buying side, the agencies and brands that are working in the audio space today. And it's a great tool for the publishers that use it today as well, who are managing, thousands of campaigns on behalf of their clients. And
Yeah.
I'll get to that point in terms of showing you some of the features that allow them to move quickly.
That's a really important point that I do want to highlight. In other ad channels, the idea that your hosting platform, say your website, and your ad server for your direct campaigns, say your hosting platform in podcasting, right? And then the programmatic ad server, your SSP, and then the creative management or campaign management tool being all one, like it is in podcasting today, that's not normal. Right. And so this is a step in maturity for podcasting as we move away from your hosting platform and your ad server and your SSP being all connected. The next step here is the campaign and creative management being separate, right? That is its own entity, and it should be able to be run wherever you choose. And that's what the freedom of this standard offers. So, this is why I'm really excited about this platform, because it's flexibility on a creative first mindset, which podcasting sorely needs. We keep thinking about creative as an afterthought or something thrown in, when really it's the center of what makes things work.
That's right. And we're setting up the foundational building blocks to allow us to then focus more on the creative as we move forward. So what you're seeing today with frequency is just the beginning of saying, okay, we're going to set up this layer. Now you have the ability to control your creative across your campaigns, but you can imagine all the different elements that go into the creative could be adjusted in the future. You start thinking about voice synthesis, you start thinking about all these data signals that can be used for triggers. We'll just highlight a little bit of this. But there's a long path ahead for us in the industry to improving creative as we move forward. And we really should start to think about it much more, because that improvement in the creative comes back around in terms of return on investment for advertisers, and makes the listening experience better, so you don't have people just skipping ads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you now. So I've added a few assets to what we call the canvas. And on the canvas, you have on the left hand side is the actual files. So I can play these files. And on the right hand side are the resources. And if I open up the resource panel, I can actually add certain elements. So for instance, with streaming, you have your ability to do companion banners, right? So I can add a companion banner, and I can put quickly a click through link, and I can actually have, a display impression pixel. I can also do the same thing with pixels. So for instance, I want to add in an audio impression pixel. Maybe I want to have two. We have clients that literally will have 5 to 7 pixels on one audio file, right? It's absolutely crazy, the number of pixels that need to be fired, because you got to think about, your verification pixel, your attribution pixel. So there's a lot that's going into just setting up one campaign with a few files,
Yeah.
right? Think about the tedious work that has to go into managing those pixels. So frequency is doing a lot, and we're going to be doing more in the coming year around tag management and making it easier for ad ops and campaign managers to ensure that that pixel that they're placing is validated, it's going to be firing correctly, it's got the right macros depending on the ad servers you're using. All of that has to go into the equation. And today, you have a lot of human error, which results in make goods for these publishers. So we're talking about a lot of money that's being lost just for this type of work, right? And you have people that are doing this on a day-to-day basis who are sweating over these campaigns and doing it weekends and nights. And frankly, that shouldn't be the case, right? The accolades always go to the people bringing in the money. And then you have, the fulcrum of the organization that's working so hard to make sure that the campaigns are successful. We are giving them the tools, right? This frequency should be basically considered the best friend for ad ops and campaign managers.
And ad ops and campaign managers need those friends. I mean, my time in the ad ops space before getting deeper into podcasting, I've absolutely been on the receiving end of a 5,000 line item campaign where where the seller basically just passed it all off, and we had an individual impression and tracking pixel, like click pixel, for every single one. Right? That's 2 copy and paste per each of those lines. There's no way to do it right. Right? Like, unless you build something that purposefully ingests that data and aligns it, the manual aspect is just prone to failure as you exceed somewhere around single digit entries to put in yourself.
Yeah, and it's difficult. We have so many vendors now, and we've talked about this. I mean, you've talked about it, and it sounds profitable. How many new vendors are providing attribution pixels? So, publishers and clients are dealing with all sorts of vendors, different tags. You can imagine, the various formats of these tags, the macros that are related, and so it's causing a lot of problems. So we're solving for some of these items. So I'll also show you here. So there's audio impression listen through rate streaming pixels. So you can add through the completion in streaming. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to actually go back to the canvas, and you're going to see I've got my banner set up, and I've got pixels set up for just this one file. But I could apply this for all the files. Now, imagine if you have 10, 20, 100, 1,000 files. Literally, you can pieces of creative behind a VAS tag, right? Upwards of however many thousands of files you want.
Yeah.
I can do a process of what we call import export. So I can download a configuration of this file. And actually, I'm going to share my desktop real quick.
Sure.
And I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm going to get that spreadsheet, and you're going to see in here on my desktop on this Excel spreadsheet file, the information related to those files, the banner and the click out pixel and banner impression pixel I applied. And actually, I'm just going to do something real quick, and I'm going to take this and copy it across the others. Now, this is a simple example, but essentially I can import this file with those quick changes that I made, and it updates everything on the canvas.
Wow.
So I know you may look at this and say, well, hold on, I mean, that's not that amazing, but actually what's doing, it's saving tens to hundreds of hours
Yeah.
for our clients. It literally saving tens of hundreds of hours for our clients for that one feature of, hey, I need to import the configuration of what's behind the VAS tag. Now imagine you as a campaign manager or ad operator has to make a change for Lexus or Coca-Cola or McDonald's every day, every week. Well, this is so easy and efficient to do it at an ad level. And I'll show you as well, we have that at a campaign level. So you can manage it across 70, 100, however many flights and all the different targeted segments that you're running. You can actually manage to update your creative across those in real time.
Well, basically what you showed me there, by kicking it out into Excel, I could do a join, right? So that example I had, 3,000 to 5,000 different line items there. If the file name matches, or the creative matches, or some other component that I put into frequency matches the other file I have that's output from the tracking tag partner, I can join those two fields together and then copy them all appropriately in there immediately, and then upload this back into frequency, right?
That's right. And you
That's
can
awesome.
also have validation errors. So what I was talking about before around the tags, the right macros, file names you have in your asset library, right? If I'm changing the configuration with different files, with it, whether it's this type of MP3 file here, FCN Stories 15, those names, everything's going to be validated when you do that import. And so the system's going to recognize what assets you have. Do the pixels make sense? Do they work? And it's going to tell you exactly what errors you have. So you can make these quick changes and just double check your work, right? It's always
Yeah.
very important to have that kind of
Now,
process.
asset library, is that unique to me per campaign, or is that unique to the campaign, or is it unique to me? Like, how does it work? Does it carry over across everything I do? Can I bulk upload to it and then sort later?
Yeah, so the asset library is at the advertiser level per the client, right? And then you can actually divide it into campaign and specific
Perfect.
ads. So you can carry your assets across. You can have other people on your team. So for instance, in this case, I didn't add these files. Mark Chernesky added these files, right, to this campaign. So I'm actually just bumping off of what he's already started in terms of this process. And then you always have, often many team members that are involved in this process of getting campaigns live. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to publish this ad. So this is going to create now a VAS tag, right? As we were talking about before. And this VAS tag is what I can copy and paste and apply into my DSP or to my ad servers. And frequency allows for any of the DSP ad servers to be out there, right? So if I switch to, for instance, Triton, you'd see the VAS tag that's available for Triton that I could paste into the Triton ad platform. We can set it up based on whomever you are working with.
Yeah.
It'll match so for your environment, we'll have those tags available. It's a quick setup process.
And it looks
Now,
like you're pulling in all of the critical macros unique to each of those partners. So you've gone through a direct integration with each of them to make sure you understood their macro needs.
so we've had those conversations. We've made sure we're matching those macros lists as they have those updated. We make sure we update it in our system. And then we do have direct integrations with some of the ad server partners. In particular, Triton is one. And I'll show you what that looks like. But yes, we are managing that process and constantly adding to the list as we expand, across other DSPs in particular in the space. And they're finding their way into audio, because as you know, that's what's actually happening right now, where a lot of buyers are saying, we want to do more in audio. How do we do it?
Yeah.
Well, these DSPs are making those entryways available. So real quick, I want to go back and just showcase another cool feature. So I've got that VAS tag created, talking about that control and flexibility over the creative. I want to copy the version that I've created of this ad unit. So you see, I've got this version 1. I'm actually going to call this version 2, and I'm going to save it, but I'm going to do one more change. So over here on the right-hand side, I've got a weighted distribution of the files. That happens automatically when you add your files to the canvas, right? So if I actually added another asset, let's just do this for real, I don't know, shits and giggles is a way to, something I can add here, but
Immediately distributes it again.
yeah, so it immediately distributes it to 25% across. I can now change that and say, you know what, I'm going to do this as a sequential message, right? So this is going to be based on that listener ID that's passed through from every ad server and DSP. We'll recognize that and we'll be able to manage the creative based on that ID.
If they don't send over a listener ID, do you build it through IP and user agent, or like do you have a fallback that you work with?
Yeah, we do have a fallback based on IP. That's
Awesome.
correct. Yeah. So data signals is one of the coolest things that is, I think, going to be taking hold in the audio space as well, right? It's being used with dynamic creative across other channels in the advertising world. But audio, I think it's kind of slowly picking it up, you know, mostly starting in streaming. And I think over time, as podcasting adopts the VAST tag standard, you're also going to see these data signals become available for these kind of real-time triggers. I'm going to show you what it looks like to set up my campaign with a data signal. We're going to use podcast categories, but just so you have an understanding of the types of data signals available out there. And some of these may not apply to podcasting, particularly because a lot is still downloaded, right? So the listener may not be there in real time, but we do things like weather with weather conditions and setting temperature. You can use time, so time of day, day of week. You can do a date range. Location, you can dial it into the actual point of interest and set up specific, you know, retail storefronts and build a radius from that. We do actually a fair amount of that with brands and agencies today. With this particular example, I'm going to do podcast categories, and I'm just going to show you what it's like. So I'm going to say, let's do comedy, arts, and business, right?
Interesting
So
combo.
based, well, you never know, right? And actually, I'm going to remove this file just to take this off. So we have 3, and I will go ahead and set one of my pieces of creative to default. So when you're running real-time triggers, you always want to have one that's a fallback because you may not get the signal from the listener. So you're going to have a fallback default. Then I can select business, and maybe I want to do one for, let's do comedy. And actually, I don't know, since I took the other file off, now I have only just those 2.
Ah, it's okay.
Should be fine. So I'm actually now going to schedule an update to this version. So we have one that's live, that one that we just produced and published first. Now I'm going to schedule a new version, and I'm going to set that to go live, let's say next Monday. So a really cool feature here is being able to, in advance, set up your campaigns with the creative, if you have the creative, to get it in a way where you don't need to be working on the weekends or working the night before to manage the change in the files. And this happens all the time.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out, yeah.
Well, 13 years ago, this would have been awesome for me as I was waking up at 3 a.m. to turn over ads depending on the time zone while just getting
That's
into
right.
mobile rich media. So these little things, how quickly you did the copy from the top toolbar, the ability to drag all these things in there. This is definitely built by someone who has experienced a lot of these headaches.
Yes, we've been through the ropes. And I think that, what you're seeing here, as we were saying, some of these things seem like simple features, but they make a world of a difference for somebody that's managing campaigns on a day-to-day basis. There's an advanced setting feature. We're actually going to add to this as well. So we'll be able to do things like volume control. But we have here sample rate, bit rate. So what ends up happening when you're actually publishing this specific version, it's going to transcode your files into the right formats depending on the publisher where the files are going to be distributed. So it knows the file format, and then also the type of bit rate. So you can manage whether you want to do 160 to 320, et cetera. So I've now scheduled a unit, and so I have this live version and I have a scheduled version, and essentially those 2 are ready to go, and I've got the VAST tag being trafficked. Now, if our campaign is live and running, you can go into the metrics. You can do the metrics at an ad unit level. You can do the metrics at a campaign level. And I can select either system reported time or user local time and select different types of reports. Now, frequency collects everything from the impression, the click through, the listen through, if there is listen through, frequency uniques, all of that information behind the VAST tag. And so for every impression, there may be, 10 data points that we're collecting. And right now, we're doing billions of impressions on a monthly basis. So our system is set up for scale. We can take those reports, we can spit them out to you, we can create custom reports. We can also drop, reports into, let's say, an S3 bucket. So you can scrape it and pull it into your business intelligence software. And we do have clients that are doing that on a regular basis. So they've set it up, let's say, at a tenant level or maybe at a campaign level. So they have regular updates to what's happening. So they can do optimizations, or they can be monitoring, just performance overall. So one thing I wanted to kind of go through here, as I was mentioning, we do have some direct integrations.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pull up one of those with Triton, because as a partner of ours, Triton has, with their new ad platform, and I know they've just done a deep dive with you in just the last few days, they will actually have in here the ability to use frequency directly. So just the way you saw opening up the creative manager from the frequency dashboard, you can do that within Triton's ad platform as well. So that's going to open up the ad unit, same capabilities, going to kick you back into Tap, and you can, clear the creative, or if you have another VAST tag, you could also do the same. But anytime you're actually going to be uploading MP3 files into Triton on ad platform, you're going to be using frequency. So we're powering that process. And I think, for ad servers out there and for DSPs that are looking at how they can bring sophistication to the ecosystem, instead of just trying to do everything themselves, because I think there's so much involved in inventory management, forecasting, setting up those pipes, dealing with targeting, combining it with a creative ad server like Frequency, you can just bring your clients 10 times more features immediately than trying to build yourself, all these specific little bells and whistles. So that's, an opportunity that we see to really help the ecosystem. And of course, by doing so, we're increasing opportunities for advertisers to do more in the audio space and just bring revenue in for everybody involved.
This is really important to highlight because I think Triton Digital has proven themselves to be a major enterprise platform, and for them to so quickly adapt to the idea that they need to provide external solutions for campaign and creative management is really healthy. I mean, that should really set the tone for where we're going in the future of podcasting. This reality that one solution, one ad server can't be everything. It can't be your hosting platform, your ad server, your SSP, your monetization partner, your creative and campaign management partner. It just muddies the water by everything being in one, because if one of them is weak, your only answer is to migrate completely off of that solution. So if every partner focuses on their core solution and then integrates like we're seeing here, it's really healthy. It allows you to mix and match to what works for you instead of picking the one with the least compromises that hit your goals for your team.
That's right. Yeah. And yes, I think in particular, you're going to see creative, as we were talking about at the beginning, become much more of a focus for advertisers. And when they're coming into audio, if they're not already doing it, they're going to want some of these features that they've already had outside of audio, right? We hear about it time and time again. And of course, advertisers today are looking at how can we do these things in podcasting? What is available in podcasting? And some of the coolest stuff that actually is available, that's coming out, as you've talked about with partners that are transcribing the podcast shows and bringing out contextualization. Well, imagine you start to be able to take that contextual data and target off that in real time.
100%.
So you can take your creative and start targeting. So those are the types of things that we as an industry need to start thinking about. And again, for us, we're just looking to how we can fit ourselves in as a creative layer and support advertisers to do more with their creative.
Yeah.
I
adamantly believe that brand safety is a binary. Things are safe or unsafe. Brand suitability is fluid. It's whether you want to be there at all or in what way you want to be there. So, getting those features, getting those signals back from the episode, having been transcribed and run through a third party to determine the level of safety or comfort, suitability rather, that means you can determine what is the right ad to respond with when it's, a pressing news topic like war breaking out somewhere, or if it's welcome to Night Vale. That
Right.
flexibility is so powerful because so many people will identify that their podcasts and their ads can be suitable and so much more when the combination is correct and it's not one size fits all. And not everything in the future of this is going to be host read ads, which makes things as suitable as can be because the host ideally is going to put something into it that gives it that spin. But that's not the growth of this. The one thing I do really want to ask you, and it's so interesting to me for you to walk through this, because when I think about the future and the growth and all of the things that this could benefit for, to me, this is very attractive as a media buyer. We're pushing publishers and advertisers and agencies to evaluate programmatic. And I think that the near term win is the buyer has more control. They have the ability to set a campaign up. They have the ability to get it approved by multiple partners. They get an ability to run everywhere and frequency caps and creative executions adhered from one place, right? They don't have to worry about the pixels being set up incorrectly in one place but not the other and messing up the whole campaign. So for me, this seems so attractive for buyers, and it's very clear that you're working on building it there, and there are a lot of features available. But you kicked this off by saying that this was for publishers. So can you tell me what about this specifically to you, outside of the awesome operational components here, makes this a publisher first system?
Well, so I apologize because I don't mean to say that it's a tool for publishers. We actually
Gotcha.
have just what I was saying initially is that we were building this and have been working with publishers since day one. So, the way that you experience the product is because of the experiences we've had working with our client partners and the ad operators within each of these clients and the day to day of their what they're dealing with. But as you said, this is a tool that can be used by agencies and brands, right? And actually, I'm going to make this an offer for any agencies or brands that are going to watch this. We are looking to build an advertiser council that we will have formed by the end of the year. And so we would like to have 3 brands and 3 agencies, individuals from those companies, on the council that can help inform the product development direction of what we're doing for the media buying side. As you see, there's a lot of really cool features that already can be used by those types of clients, but we have a lot of things that we can be changing as well to make their world easier and their workflow. The efficiencies there. So you think about trading desks, for instance. Their process is very similar to a certain respect as the publishers. They have individuals that are managing their campaigns day to day, doing all the creative swaps. But they have other objectives that they're working with, in terms of their agency partners and the individuals in the team. And they, will not be looking at it from a direct buy situation. They're going to be looking at how can we integrate this system with the programmatic system. So much more DSP focused. So there's little nuances. But as we were saying, this is a tool that can already be used. And I think we didn't touch on this, but that ability to update your campaigns across all flights, across all your creative, and do that in a way that saves you hundreds of hours. It's not only just impacting those campaign managers and ad operators, but when you solve for those pain points, you open up opportunities on the revenue side. So I think one of the most important things here is to think about it from an ad revenue operations department, if you will, right? How am I going to bring in more money? Well, you're going to bring in more money by making sure that your sellers can respond to RFPs quickly. So your campaigns are up. You're going to bring in more money by having the ability to say, yes, I can do that. We hear about publishers that say no quite often because they may not just want to do all of the work, right? So having tools like this to say, yes, I can do that, right? And then when you have individual team members that are not bogged down in the weeds and they are free to do more things like optimizations or help and support your team think about new ad products, you're going to open up new ad revenue opportunities.
Yeah.
So Frequency is set up the system to support the organization, across those individual teams, from ad ops, ad sales, ad creative. And we will be introducing ad formats that team at the publisher level can bring out and media buyers can also utilize. And so we won't talk about some of them today, but we will have upcoming deep dives in the end of this year and next year with you, and we look forward to showcasing some of those future products.
Yeah, I think it's really important here, and I want to make sure people understand this. The squeeze is coming in the near future, right? It is important to optimize today and get maximum efficiency today in how you're operating. Not when you hit 100% fill rate, not when, everything is completely sold out. You do it today to give yourself more breathing room. Like Pete said, there are so many cool features in there. You saw the weather opportunities, you saw all of that. I made a joke once that you could negative target every single major metropolitan area and run a podcast campaign and uncover a bunch of untapped listeners. And I don't think that that's
Right.
wrong. And giving someone on ad ops and planning and yield optimization and all of these teams the ability to sit there and look at your inventory, look at the targeting capabilities, and build unique packages. You can have all the same tools, but if that person doesn't have the breadth to build a new product, a new offering for you to
Right.
sell, you'll never get there because they
You
need to be
never get there.
confident.
Exactly.
Yeah, they need to be confident in what they've built, how to represent it, and how to execute it. And the only way to do that is giving them time because you've optimized other parts of their day. Pete, this UI is fantastic. And I love that you're calling out to put together an advertiser and buyer council. And so where can people connect with you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, great. Thanks. So you can come to our site, frequencyads.com. So that's frequencyads.com, and go to our contact page if you want to reach out that way. You can also reach out to me at pete@frequencyads.com, or reach out to our sales team at sales@frequencyads.com. And we've got a great team, very friendly as well. And, really looking forward to working with some of the agencies and media buyers out there. As we were saying, at the Advertiser Council, we do have a few that have already been identified. We will only be, looking to build that council out over the next few weeks. But definitely by the end of the year, we'll have a formation of that council. And we hope that there's somebody out there that will see this and be excited to kind of join the journey with us.
That
So
sounds,
thank you, Brian.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That sounds so awesome. I'm so excited for this. And I'm excited to have you back later this year for another product deep dive. So, Pete, thank you again. Well, everybody go check out frequencyads.com. Follow up with Pete if you fit the right profile for advertiser or agency. And if you're a publisher, now is a great time to get a hands-on demo with Pete so he can show you exactly where he can improve the efficiencies in your process.